Exactly. So that's how we specify this one, which makes the next one easy to specify because it is I plus 1, which is the next available column. So this is also known as column E.
Can you not put 2 and...
Sorry?
Can you not just put the value 2 there?
No.
No.
You cannot put the value 2 here because Y is still passed by reference.
Okay.
Am I answering the question? Okay. Then you cannot put a value here because anytime you have a parameter that is passed by reference, like X and Y in this case, it has to be an alias of another column.
Right.
Okay? So in this case, you have to figure out, okay, what is it an alias of? And since A bracket 1 is column D and A bracket 2 is column E, that makes parameter X and parameter Y aliases of those 2 columns respectively. Yep.
So if the X touch the column F, the whole program gonna freeze because you don't have anything.
Yeah, we do have column F.
No, you don't have anything for Y because Y is column F plus.
That is correct. If it is using an index that is greater than or equal to the number of elements, then you have to stop. But this program will not get to that stage because the boundary of the loop already guarantees that I will have a next element to swap with. Okay. So just kind of bear with me right now, and we'll take a look at what this is going to do. Okay. So sorry? Yeah, we have displayed screen. And I suppose we can just scroll it sometimes. Okay. So now we continue the execution inside the swap subroutine. The swap subroutine is fairly straightforward. Okay, the first line in the swap subroutine is line 16. Line 16 says we want to copy the value of X to T. What is X? X is also known as column D. So we take a look at column D. Okay, I think I might need to use the other trick and use one more window to make this easy. Okay, new window. For the most part, you don't have to do anything quite like this in the exam because you have a lot more screen space than I do. Alright, that looks yeah. Need to find a place to stash that. Okay, I think that's probably okay. Okay, so we are copying on line 16, which is this line here. We're copying the value of X to T. X is referring to column D, and column D has a value of 2. So that means my local variable T is going to end up with a value of 2. Is that okay so far? Okay. And then line 17 is copying the value of Y to X. But what is Y? Y is an alias of column E. Column E has a value of 10, so that means what? That means this gets changed right away. Okay, so that means that we have to. This gets a little bit hard to track now. Okay, because we have to look at the row number. This is row 11. So on row 11, Y, which is column X gets changed. So column D is going to be changed to 10. Now this is important, so let me just kind of boldface that because this is what happens to the array as we execute the swap subroutine. Okay? The swap subroutine, which is called by strange, will actually directly change the columns of the array itself because it has references. It knows where to find those elements. Okay. So with that out of the way, we look at the next statement, which is line 18. Line 18 is copying the value of T to Y. But what is Y? Y is also known as column E. So we're updating column E in this case to become 2. So we look it up here, and then we say column E on row 12 is going to be updated to a value of 2, and then we 2, and then I also want to boldface that because that's the effect of that particular line. Are there any questions at this point? Because this is something that we should be able to figure out by combining the concepts that we have learned so far. But nonetheless, this is the tricky part of this particular program, which otherwise is fairly straightforward. No recursion, no return value. The only tricky part is when we pass something by reference, you are telling the subroutine how to get back to the original column. And so whatever we do to the pass by reference parameter, it will happen immediately to the column that it refers to. Is that okay so far? Any questions about this one? No questions? Okay. If there are no questions, we move on, which is, not really surprising anymore because now that we know how this works out, the next one is not bad. So then we move on. After line 18, we return, so we go to line 19. Line 19, in this case, is a fairly simple operation. We simply say that these columns no longer exist because the subroutine is all done. And then we return back to line 8 based on the return line number, and then we return back to this context here. And what does line 8 do? Line 8 is fairly simple. It just wants to add 1 to I, which is column J. So column J would go from 1 to 2, okay, fairly easy stuff. And then we go back to the beginning of the loop on line 6. Due to the wrong screen. So we go back to line 6 here, and when we go back to line 6, we re-evaluate the condition. I is less than bar A bar minus 1. Is that still true or not?
That's true.
I is 2, bar A bar is 4, 4 minus 1 is 3, is 2 less than 3?
Yes.
So it's still true. This is the last time it's going to be true because next time I will become 3, and then this condition will become false. But since it is still true at this point, we just follow the logic. If we move on to line 7, which is going to call the subroutine again. So when it does call the subroutine, we can copy and paste for the most part what we have done in the past, except the two parameters are not going to be aka column D and aka column E anymore. It's going to be what? Aka column E and aka column F this time. Because I has now incremented to 2, so we are now referring to A bracket 2 and A bracket 3, and A bracket 2 is also in the original array the third element, so you have to figure out the columns for those two elements. So this one has to be changed to column E, and this one has to be changed to column F. Are we okay so far? Okay. And then we start execution inside the subroutine, on line 16. Line 16 says we want to copy the value of x to t, which is a local variable. X is also known as column E, and column E at this point has a value of 2. Okay, so that means over here, t gets updated to 2 again. Okay, and we move on to line 17. Line 17 says we want to copy the value of y to x. Y is also known as column F,